This is a brief discussion about the importance of file notes. In this week's readings, you might have seen file notes mentioned a couple of times, and I'm here to tell you about the importance of file notes and why you need to keep them. File notes are important for a number of matters. Firstly, it's a way of keeping a record of what you and your client have discussed or you and anybody else have discussed. It's contemporaneous notes. It reminds you of what you need to do or what your client has said they are going to do or what another party has said they're going to do. File notes are extremely important as a record of what has happened in your file. They can help out another solicitor who might need to take over carriage of your file. And if there's a complaint ever made about you, then you have some contemporaneous notes about what has happened that are evidence of your version of events that might be different to somebody else's. So what do you keep in a file note? I would always put the date and potentially the time, whether it was a telephone call, a personal attendance upon somebody, who that person was, whether I made the call, whether they called me, which are just minor details, but they help to jog your memory of what's happened. And then I would write down or type as much as I could about what had happened, and particularly if my client had given me specific instructions or I had given advice, that I would be making very sure that I had had those details in my file note, and then I'd just sign it at the end. So file notes are an extremely important part of being a lawyer. It's something that you need to get used to doing every time you talk to somebody, whether it's a client, whether it's another lawyer, whether it's a professional like an accountant or anybody like that. Every time you talk to somebody, it needs to be recorded as to what happened. File notes are also helpful in terms of billing your file as a record, and different firms have different ways of billing the work that you do, but being able to see the file note and say, yep, that's a telephone call that I need to bill. Yep, that's a personal attendance on somebody. This is how long it went for, and that's what I need to bill. So they're important parts of your file, and there's something that you need to get used to from an very early stage, that every time you talk to somebody, every time you see somebody, that you prepare a file note of it and you write it down. Sometimes, particularly if it's a client giving you instructions or you giving advice, it's advisable then to follow that up to your client with an email or a letter just confirming your instructions or confirming your advice. So that way you're covering yourself and you're making sure that your client knows what they need to do, what their advice is, and it's clear the information that's being given or the instructions received. They're just some practical tips for file notes. Bye.